So this is my second video looking at the various series and stories done by Alan Moore. And this time I'm going to be looking at Miracleman. And again, I'm going to try to keep this at 10 minutes. At 10 minutes, I'm just going to end it. But Miracleman has a very interesting history, and I'm going to try and state it from memory because it's quite complicated. But basically, a company in the UK had the rights to Captain Marvel back in the 1950s, maybe the 1940s, I think the 50s, and to publish Captain Marvel in the UK, and they lost those rights. So it was a popular series, and they decided to simply create their own character that was really just a duplicate of Captain Marvel, and he was called Marvel Man. And there was the whole Marvel Man family, and he was so similar that it was kind of ridiculous. And so in 1982, they decided to, Alan Moore decided to restart the series, reinvent the character. I guess it was maybe still called Marvel Man when he recreated, but when it was brought to the United States, they changed it to Miracleman for obvious reasons, probably to avoid confusion and maybe for legal rights, both with DC and Marvel Comics, given the similarity to Captain Marvel. These are the original comics. These are not from 1982. These are quality comics, and they were reprints of the original black and white and then colorized and released in the United States. And Quality also was doing the Judge Dredd comics, which at the time I didn't realize were originally black and white and then colorized. So these are book versions of them, hardbound versions of Alan Moore's story, and they are put out by Marvel Comics. So I don't know how Marvel ended up with the rights to it, whether it was because of the name or whether they bought it or what, but this is by Marvel. I don't love these books, and for a few different reasons. First of all, there is never a mention of Alan Moore anywhere in here, and he is simply the original writer. That's his name. So now I'm not going to necessarily blame Marvel for that, because I know that Alan Moore can be quite prickly, and he did not want his name. I don't know whether he had, I assume he had issues with Marvel. I certainly know he had issues with DC, and I guess he didn't want, he will stick to his guns. I'll give him credit for that. I don't agree with everything he does, but he will leave money on the table for his convictions. So I don't know if he got paid for these books, but they are written by the original writer, who is Alan Moore. One of the things I don't like about it, so if I can just kind of show you in there, you can see the white pages and the black pages. The white pages are the stories, the black pages are the extras, and you can see it's about 50% extras. And I think I like extras, but good Lord, I mean, come on. They could have packed all of this material into one book. Look at this. I mean, and mind you, some of that stuff in there isn't even Alan Moore. There were some other stories in there. So the total volume in this final book that was by Alan Moore is actually just a small percentage of the book. And I kind of dinged these books on Amazon in my reviews. The material is fantastic. I would prefer reading it from here than the comics, to keep the comics in the best shape possible. As a long time comic book collector, I can tell you that almost none of my comics appreciated in value. And so this is one of the few, even though they're reprints, this is one of the few that had some appreciation in value. The one that appreciated by far is issue 15, which is listed, I think it was $80, 80 some bucks on in a condition 9.0, which is still not a lot of money for a comic from that long ago. I would say that this is another one that just blew me away, because basically it was Captain Marvel if Captain Marvel lived in the real world. Now, there were super villains and lots of superpowers all over the place, but it was a much more realistic take on the character. And I would say that this series is probably one of the most influential comics in history, the most influential series. And I think a lot of writers are influenced by it who don't even know that they are influenced by it. And the reason was because this is the first occasion where I can remember ever seeing, and I would be shocked if there was another one where it happened, where you had a Superman level character who goes on a murder spree. And you can think of all the different stories that have included something like that, from the series Irredeemable to The Boys. And this has been done over and over again. What would happen if you had a psychopathic Superman level villain or character? And it really is. That's why this particular issue is so memorable, is because the horror is gruesome. It is really gruesome in what they show in here. Just horrifying. The whole series is really well written, but it is kind of like Swamp Thing, in that when it started getting to the last few issues, Alan Moore started getting really prosaic, and I just kind of lost interest. The series started off really hard hitting, and I think this is one of the series that I may have even stopped collecting at one point. So I have most of it. You could see kind of, the number of comics as compared to the number of books. So the actual material isn't a ton. So I think I got most of them. I'd have to look to see if I have. And a lot of them I actually had 2 issues. I don't know why. I'm going to sell those. I don't need the duplicates. But it is very influential and super well written. And I highly recommend. I hate to recommend these books because I don't think they're very well done. There is also an omnibus out there, but that is also by Marvel Comics, and it's the original writer. I wish that. And Neil Gaiman actually, I forgot about that. Neil Gaiman actually took over after Alan Moore. So that's often the case where when Alan Moore leaves a series, another British writer will take over. But I think that the Marvel versions are probably the best available, because I don't know that I would recommend going out and trying to buy the comics because some of them are a bit expensive. You're certainly going to get, wow, $50. I don't think I paid that much for it, but that is a lot for these. $40 and $50 for these books. I mean, these are regular size hardcover books, so that is a lot of money to pay. I hope I didn't pay that much for them, but I don't remember paying that much. But it really is a fantastic series. It's one of his best, and I think I feel like people have forgotten about this one. You hear about V for Vendetta and From Hell, and because those movies or those books were made into movies, so people remember them, and I think a lot of people, except for real hardcore comic fans, probably are unaware of Miracleman. But it's one that will stick with you. There's certain stories in here that are hard to forget, as are a lot of the stories by Alan Moore. So that's Miracleman.